supplies, and as a result, there's a dismal 14% pass rate. I have been so moved by your story. Your story is, at the core of everything I believe in the possibility of a human life here on Earth. And for that reason, I am going to help you rebuild your school. I'm donating $1.5 million. I'm donating $1.5 million. And I want you to have help doing it because I know it's hard. Save the Children is going to spend 3 years working with teachers and children and parents in the area to improve literacy and basic education. So ultimately, 4,000 children will have a better education because of you. We're going to build a school together. We are going to build a school.
It is achievable.
And it is achievable.
Ooh, that makes me so happy. That makes me so happy. If you will roll the tape and you will see that moment where when she first comes out and we first look at each other, that is just a solid moment. That is a woman to woman. That is I see you, I know who you are, and I know what it takes to do what you have done. That's what I call holy moments, when you look at somebody and you feel the fullness of who they really are. That's what that moment is about.
I know no other weapon in my life to fight social injustice except education. I know no other weapon to fight abuse in my life except the awakening of women. I talk about women, I breathe about the awakening of women, because I know that the achievement of women's dreams is central to our healing as a nation.
Yes. I am here with Dr. Tererai, Trent. We are at the Emerging Women's Conference in Denver. We have hundreds of women from all over the world here. And when I met Dr. Trent yesterday, I wanted to interview her for you, because when she started telling me about this book, The Awakened Woman, I got goosebumps all over my body, because we're in this conversation at Women Rocking Business about how do we bring our message to the world and how do we hang on to our humanitarian qualities.
Yes.
And something that you said yesterday, you've been doing this work of women for decades.
Yes.
You're here from Zimbabwe. And you said yesterday, I am a humanitarian first.
Yes.
And an entrepreneur second.
Yes.
And this has allowed you to create this thriving life and travel and have great impact. And Oprah wrote the foreword. Oprah Winfrey wrote the foreword to your book.
That
and this
was
book,
amazing. That's amazing.
Book is so beautiful. So I just I want to know, how did you come to be doing this work? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I come from a silenced women. From a long line of generations of women who had been married very young before they could define their own dreams. They were silenced right there.
Yeah.
My great-grandmother never had an education, married young. My grandmother go through the same pathway, my own mother. And here I was, 18 years of age, already a mother of 4 with no high school education. I was silenced. So when I got the opportunity to rise, to gain my own awakening, I decided not only do I want to be a humanitarian, but I also want to write a book that would also feed women's souls. There are so many women that I know are coming from the same pathway that I'm coming from. We all carry those soul wounds that were passed on to us. But with the passing of the soul wounds, there's also the passing of hope, and wisdom. And I'm bringing that wisdom to heal the sisterhood.
Oh, sister.
Yes.
Sister, you're speaking right to my heart.
Oh, thank you.
And I just get so deeply touched because, here we are having this conversation.
Yes.
You're watching on Facebook. Here we are at this amazing conference. And yet we come from mothers and grandmothers who were silenced.
Yes.
And here it is, we get to have a voice, right? And yet it's in our lineage and sometimes in our habitualness to sometimes shrink in the face of our power and our truth and our voice. Can you speak to this journey? Because your book does it beautifully, and I definitely encourage you all to go grab the book. And can you speak to this for us?
Yes, when I realized that this is the journey, this is the past that I'm coming from. At first I used to shrink, be ashamed to talk about it. Then I realized that it is through recognizing our vulnerabilities that will strengthen us.
Yes.
So when I talk about my great-grandmother being married young, my grandmother, my mother, I talk about and always visualize them carrying this baton.
Yes.
The baton of poverty.
Yes.
The baton of early marriage. And my great-grandmother, she's born with this baton in a race that she never defined. And she runs. She hands over this baton of early marriage, the baton of silencing, to my grandmother. My grandmother grabs that baton and she runs. She hands it over to my mother. And my mother hands it over to me. I recognized that.
Yeah.
And I said I needed to break down this vicious cycle that runs in our families and in our communities.
Wow.
And I also recognize it's not only running in my family, but many women.
Yeah.
What about if we realize that when women's dreams become central to who we are, we can rise and heal the world? So I wanted to come up with this book,
Yes.
The Awakened Woman.
Yes.
Remembering and reigniting
Yes.
our sacred dreams.
Yes.
And the sacred dream is not only about our personal dreams in life.
Right.
Those financial goals that are so personal, those, degrees that are so personal, but it is about how our financial goals are connected to the greater good.
Yes.
That's the secret, that's the sacred dream. Because we are reminded so much by the Native Americans and most of the indigenous communities, and especially women who carry the wisdom.
Yes.
They say humankind has not woven the web of life. We are one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we are doing it to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things are connected. So I talk about the power of the baton.
Yes.
And I talk about the power of great hunger in this book. Recognizing the two hungers in our lives.
Yes.
There is the little hunger, which is all about immediate gratification. Then there is the great hunger that you will hear. I'll be talking about it in the session this afternoon.
So I love what you said about when women's dreams become central. It's this opportunity that then we get to change the world, right? And it doesn't mean that we neglect our husbands, and it doesn't mean that we neglect our children. It means we make our dreams central. So can you speak a little bit more about the hunger for following our dreams and how that plays out?
Yes. In this book, there's a chapter that I talk about the hunger in our lives. Because when I was awakening to my own self, I had this hunger, a hunger for a meaningful life. There are two kinds of hunger in our lives. There is the little hunger. The little hunger is all about immediate gratification. Let me have it now. It's all about how many Facebook likes do I have. But the great hunger, the greatest of all hungers, as my grandmother would talk about it, is hunger for a meaningful life, a hunger for substance in our life. Without that, ultimately, human beings, and especially women, we become bitter because we want to change our lives and we want to change the lives of others. Those are the kinds of hunger. I also talk about, there's a chapter that is surprising everyone that I meet, chapter 5, where I talk about our sexuality.
Yes, tell me more.
I encourage women. Our awakening is not only recognizing our past, recognizing who we are and becoming giants, but it also recognizing our sensuality, recognizing the erotic power that we have. When we are satisfied in our bodies, defining who we are, we achieve our dreams. But if we are denied from recognizing that, we shrink.
Yeah.
So it's important to do that.
I couldn't agree more.
And I talk also about the power of sawiraship. This book comes with lots of African wisdom.
Sawiraship.
Sawiraship.
This is a beautiful word. What does it mean?
You are my sister.
Yes.
I'm your sister.
Yes.
I don't have to be your blood sister. I stand on your shoulders. You also stand on mine. Our relationships are fluid. When women come together, it's that collectiveness that we bring, that feminine energy that we bring together. It will heal the world.
Oh, I have goosebumps. And you've said so much that I want to reflect on, but number one, you've said that our hunger for making a difference and for living a meaningful life will, when we can say yes to that hunger,
Yes.
it almost can start to eliminate the fears
Yes.
and those niggly desires for instant gratification
Yes.
that come up along the way.
Exactly.
Right? Because we have a deep connection, as women, we have a deep connection into the whole.
Yes, yes, we are part of the whole.
Yes.
We are really part of the whole.
Yes.
And you know, my mother would talk about, I also included it in this book, she would talk about the laws of the invisible ladder.
Ah.
We are all climbing this invisible ladder as sisters. Despite race, class, we are all climbing. There are others who are climbing, they are almost reaching the top rung. They have this responsibility, it's a sacred responsibility to look down to those who are coming down and pull them up.
Yes. Yes.
We have to
Yes.
honor that invisible ladder
That is such,
and its laws.
such a beautiful, beautiful image.
Yes, yes, yes.
I heard this Indian guru speak, and he was talking about how women can be like crabs in a pot.
Yeah.
Because we can be almost competitive with each other in these slight ways, especially in the past.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I feel we're at a time that we're moving beyond that.
Oh yeah.
He
yeah.
said women can be like crabs in a pot. When you put the pot on the stove to boil, you don't need to put a lid on the pot, because when one of the crabs gets its little leg over the edge of the pot, another crab will just pull it back down.
Yeah.
He said in the past, women have been afraid to let their sisters get too big.
Yes.
They will just yank them down. Back to my level, sister. Come back to my level, sister. But that's not what's happening here. We are living at a time where we're hooking our legs over the edge of the
Yes,
pot, and
yes.
we're chucking each other out of the pot.
Exactly,
We're
exactly.
lifting each other up the invisible ladder.
Yes, yes. And so at times we do these things in silos.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I'm saying with this book is, let's come together.
Yes.
Let's recognize that rising, that going back to our sisters, and let's bring us all together so that we can reduce the silencing in our world. Let us be the storytellers
Yes.
of our own stories,
Yes.
owning them
Yes.
as women.
Yes. And I think that as women, especially as women leaders, those of us that are learning to sell ourselves, we don't love to sell ourselves. We would so much rather just be ourselves
Yes.
and let people say, you know what, I want more of that.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
And we can say there's more where that came from.
Exactly.
Yes, you can hire me.
Yes,
In fact, you
yes.
can hire me. And one of the things that I love about what you said is when we tell stories,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
become magnetic. And I have a saying that says, content tells, but stories are what sell.
Exactly.
And this is one of the things that I fell in love with about you yesterday. Immediately, you were in story, and I can see why you have 80,000 people all over the world that you touch.
Oh,
and I
thank
can
you.
see why you've created this platform with these. This is your third book.
Yes.
And
yes.
just to wrap up, okay, so my favorite chapter was, when I was looking at this last night, was about harnessing my sensuality
Yes.
as my power as a woman.
Exactly.
And this is chapter 5.
Yes.
And I'd hate to have any of you go without getting a chance to read chapter 5. So
it's
you
powerful.
can buy the book on Amazon.
Yes.
The Awakened Woman. Okay, The Awakened Woman
Yes.
by Dr. Tererai
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
And chapter 5, can you leave us with, okay, so reading the chapter was a bit like a attunement for me to my own sexuality, that I can actually run that erotic energy as a way to have things happen all around me.
Yeah.
And I could feel how, I just launched a
Yeah.
book too, and I could feel how my sensuality and my sexuality was part of what magnetized a lot of the good things that happened in my book launch to me, but I hadn't really put it into words.
Yes.
And the way you described it helped me tap into it in a way that I feel I can now, I'm going to be able to return to it more easily.
Exactly.
Can you give us one little morsel?
Exactly. When I talk about this erotic energy, when I talk about our sensuality, I'm not only talking about the physical sex.
Yeah.
It's also beyond that. A woman who is physically satisfied is also a woman who can sit in a boardroom and contribute with passion.
Yes.
We are denied to talk about sex, our erotic power. We are always told it's dirt, but this book is saying, no, it's not. I always talk about, I was married when I was very young, and marriage was an obligation. Sex was an obligation. Never thought I would enjoy it up until later in years when I married my current husband. And I am thinking, gosh, I missed the big O. In this book, there's a woman that I met. I met many women who were telling me the first time they experienced their big O. They said, I became fully awakened as a woman. So I want women to read this book. I want them to enjoy who they are, to be the storytellers. In Africa, we have a saying, until the female lioness becomes the historian of her own story, the tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Be your own storyteller.
Can you feel her power? I have to tell you, I feel lit up and turned on just being with you.
Thank you.
And this transmission that you bring is in the book.
Yes.
You know how sometimes reading a book is a transmission? This is the book. So go to Amazon, grab the book, stay in touch with Dr. Trent.
Yes.
You're amazing. Thank you for bringing your richness and your power to us.
And thank you, and to your listeners, to your fans.
Yes.
This is the book. It's not only about trying to be having so many sales and what have you, but the proceeds from the book, it's also going to help the mission of building schools, of making sure that rural girls that I work with, they also have a chance and an opportunity to have their own education. Thank you for the support.
Dr. Trent builds schools all over Zimbabwe, all over Africa, supporting women and school children. And I just like to see the way that you put the book together, to see the way that you've built your business as a humanitarian project, and to get the transmission of using your sensual energy to step fully into your lioness and your leadership, and to really say yes to that big hunger to live a meaningful life. Thank you so much for being here. Keep shining.
Thank you.
We love you.
We
Bye,
love you.
everyone.
Thank you.